Our speakers, our panelists today, forgive me if I have to read my notes. This is Caitlin Mogandel. Her name, she is from Italy, and I couldn't pronounce her name, so I got to say it with an Italian accent. She's the founder of Pulp Pantry, which I'm sure you have read about her. She uses that leftover pulp from juice into fabulous, healthy, nutritional food. Next to her is Rachel Clayer. She's business development manager from Fitbit. How many of you heard of Fitbit? Hands in the air, darn right. They're having lots of fun. They're changing the world, and more things are coming out of the company, more things to watch. Next is Amanda Bucci. She is an all-star fitness expert. I'm sure you've heard of her. She has 500,000 followers on Instagram, a blog, a YouTube channel. Most amazing woman. How lucky we are to have her. And at the end, fortunate to have Morgan Bueller. Morgan is with a company called Primal Kitchen. If you haven't heard of them yet, you will and you should. They're in Whole Foods or many different stores. They started the very first avocado-based mayonnaise and now avocado oil condiments in a salad dressing. So I've said enough. It's time for your speakers.
Before I get started talking about me, can I just say that I think it's so awesome that this school has an entrepreneurship program and that you guys have that opportunity. I had no clue what entrepreneurship was when I was in school. I was a nursing major. I am a social media influencer, but I also own a couple of my own companies. I'm now coaching entrepreneurs on how to grow their own health and wellness businesses on their own. I got started in what I'm doing now just by being in nursing school. I loved fitness so much. I did a couple of bikini competitions. So I got started in the extreme realm of fitness. I got into the gym when I was around 16. I loved it. I wasn't the best at sports, but I really liked the gym. So to me, that was my way of taking my health and wellness to the next level. It was not the healthiest thing in the world. After a couple of years of doing it, I realized the after effects of the extreme way that is. So a lot of what bikini competitions, bodybuilding competitions look like is that you have to get incredibly lean, you have to have incredible discipline, you have to really learn about yourself, you have to face your insecurities head on. And I was showing all of this every single step of my journey on my YouTube channel and my Instagram. And that's how it grew so big. I had the opportunity to share with people how I was doing how I was doing it, but also how I was doing it mentally, the struggles that I was going through. So I was sharing my story as I was doing it. And through that, I learned so much about myself, and I was able to grow a massive platform in the fitness space. And since then, I realized that it's not really necessarily who I want to show up as a role model for health and wellness and for women, because for a lot of the time, I felt like I was being this person and showing up as someone who people wanted to look like, but not necessarily someone whose mindset they wanted to emulate. I want to teach people to be comfortable in their bodies. I want to teach people to have balance in their life, where I have now been able to create a balance in my life where I'm eating pretty plant-based now. I am not, the gym is not the forefront of my life anymore. It's kind of a background noise, but health is a huge priority to me, but it's not affecting the rest of the balance of everything else I'm doing in my life. My family's a priority, my business is a priority, everything else is as much a priority as health and wellness is, but it's still me. So now that I have this platform, I have a responsibility to show up as someone that I think is going to send a really great message to females about their bodies, their mindsets, and how they feel about health and fitness.
I think it's okay to not know what you want to do. And I think it's, sometimes people get afraid to say, like, you know, I did not know what I wanted to do. I started in finance, I found a great leadership program at a company, and I tried it, and I didn't like it. And I figured out who I was and what I learned by doing things that I didn't like. And I think it's okay to say that and to try those things. And I think it's okay to try opportunities and learn that you don't like them, because that's just as important as finding the things that you do love. And then the other thing that I really feel like got me where I needed to be was in every company, I found somebody that inspired me. And I think it's really important to find a man and a woman. And I'll tell you why. Because men and women see business very differently, and they see the world very differently. And I think as a woman, it's great to get both perspectives.
I was looking for a community, and I didn't really have a community of health and wellness people that I was looking for. So you guys help everybody in this room, which is amazing. And I found that community on Instagram. and I was just sharing my story. And guys, the power of sharing your story, if I can send anything to you today, it is that. And even if you're creating a story now, even if you don't have experience that you can share a story now, create it as you go and share it along the way, because that's exactly what I did. And everyone likes a good story. Everyone likes the hero, the triumph, wondering whether or not that person's going to be successful or not, what the villain looks like, what the external and internal problems are. So there was a point where I finished my nursing degree. I moved to California officially. It took the state like 4 months to get me my papers back and say, hey, you can go take your exam now. And I was sitting there like crushing it on YouTube and Instagram, and I was doing competitions, and I was having so much fun, and I was making just as much as I would have my first year out of nursing school by just kind of doing this thing on accident. So by the time that test came around, I crammed. I still really wanted to do it, and I just didn't pass. And that was the point where I had to decide, do I go with my passion full time, or do I go with this nice little path that was set out for me? And to me, the only thing stopping me was time. And if you get to that point where you're like, the only thing stopping me is just time and effort that I could be putting in, that's the pull and the passion and direction that you have to listen to inside of yourself. It's this internal voice. There'll be people that tell you, don't listen to it, definitely go, finish your degree and finish this and finish that. You already planned on doing all these things. But as you can see from all these women, did not take the original path that they had originally planned on. So because I decided to listen to that, I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew it was going to happen.
You have to be willing to move. You have to be willing to go to a different part of the country. You have to be willing to push yourself on your limits. So I would just say, if you're interested in getting here and this is the gold prize, just be willing to take a couple zigs and zags to get there.
Uncertainty is so scary, and people just get completely paralyzed by the fear of not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing whether or not they're going to succeed, not knowing whether or not they're going to fail. Just like open your arms to failure and like welcome it into your life, because it should happen. And if you don't mess up, make mistakes, fail a couple of times, you're not living your life to your fullest potential, and that's even worse than finding your dream job and not having any messes up on the way. So the more messy action that you can take in the direction of your fears, the better. Like, listen to that and let that pull you.
I think like just creating space for reflection is one of the things that it's so hard to do. There's so much noise out there, and especially if you're, any free chance you get, you're swiping through Instagram or whatever else. And I think for me, like there were so many breakthroughs I had through just sitting there and meditating, or and it's like if you become more in touch with your inner wisdom, and I think all of us as women, like that's one of the greatest strengths we have too, is I think the power of intuition and being able to be more in your body at points and really following that intuition. So finding ways that you can actually let that come out and cut out the noise. And just to give you an example, when I was graduating from USC, I was still applying to jobs, even though I had this idea for Cold Pantry, and to some extent had a lot of validation for what I was doing, but I was so fearful about doing it and taking a leap. I went and did the John Muir Trail, which, if any of you guys know that, it's a 3-week, it's like part of the PCT, right? The Cheryl Strayed thing. Yeah. But I wasn't as bad as a Cheryl Strayed, but I did a 3-week kind of backpacking trip in the Sierras, and literally that was what I had to face all of my fears, and I was like, the only thing that's holding me back from really taking this step to do this is because I'm scared, right? And I was like, that is just the worst excuse. And so it gives you kind of some time to just say to yourself, like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna face the music.
I think putting yourself first is a big one. I think, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of negativity. And I think, when you're feeling insecure, we tend to take in that. So I think as silly as it sounds, like creating a positive boundary, right, around you, getting the right people in, keeping the noise out. I think as women, we tend to internalize, if someone says 10 positive things and then the one negative thing is the thing we remember. You don't have time for that, because you're going to sit here someday and you're going to wish you were able to go back there and say to yourself, it doesn't matter. So there's things that you love, there's people that you adore, there's passions that you have, there's fears that you have. Just own it. I know it's the theme, but just block out the noise.
Branding.
Yeah,
Is that own it, ladies?
I think that would be my biggest thing, is just let the negativity slide off you. If people, if events, if places are projecting negativity, have a healthy boundary and just take in what's good for you. That doesn't mean you can't be critical. That doesn't mean you can't can't grow, it doesn't mean you can't take advice, but just, you don't need the negativity, and that's not what makes you happy and brings joy. So just let the negativity fall away. That would be my advice.
Stay scrappy. So that's been a huge mantra of mine through this whole entrepreneur journey and even just all of my 20s. I think that's a big one. My grandpa lived to 95, played tennis with him until he was 86, and he would always say, roll the ball over and keep scrimmaging. Like, he didn't have time for anything. Like, any drama, he was just like, roll the ball over and keep scrimmaging. Like, we don't have time for that. And I feel like that's hitting on what you said it is true. You're just not going to remember these little things in 5 years. And so sometimes if you just stop and ask yourself, like, is this going to matter in 5 years? Like, if the answer is no, then just roll the ball over and keep scrimmaging. You just got to keep, like, putting the left foot in front of the right and moving forward.
Don't hide. Don't hide behind your fears. Don't hide behind your insecurities, and show up powerfully and tap into your inner power. Like, learn how to just take that messy action, like I said before, but doing that will allow you to build these little bricks of confidence in yourself, and it'll allow you to say, okay, I did this one thing, like, here's my little confidence lever, and it's gonna go up and up and up the more that I keep the promises that I make to myself, every time that I show up, every time that I get outside of my comfort zone, every time that I do something that's really terrifying. It's going to make you more and more confident, and it will allow you to show up more powerfully, but you have to just show up first. You have to step out of the fear of looking silly or looking dumb or whatever it is, maybe not being qualified enough, maybe you're young, you feel like people won't take you seriously as a young female. Just the more that you can step out and just understand that's a normal feeling. Everybody feels like this. We all felt like this at some point. I can guarantee that. The more that you just do it, it will allow you to eventually feel incredibly confident in yourself.